Good afternoon from Manila, Philippines. This is Asian Pacific Rural Development and Food Security Forum 2022, Deep Dive 2, Control Environment Farming, New Window for Fresh and Nutritious Food. My name is Michiko Katagami from Asian Development Bank headquarters in Manila. Thank you very much for many of you that are participating already. Urban agriculture or control environment farming that we're going to discuss today, we would like to bring in a lot of the practices that is happening as a sort of a public sector initiative, but also the businesses. Urban farming comes in various forms. That there's, I think that many of us are increasingly notice there's a lot of rooftop farmings or windowsills so that at the home at the each of the home apartment or the building that like we have, and I have a little bit of the farming operation out there, but also the commercial farming and the large municipalities like practicing hydroponics, aquaponics, and also the aeroponics. And that's a gigantic sort of a factory, food factories that is utilizing a lot of the digital technology and also a lot of technical applications for the resource use efficiency and for the serving for the food, urban food consumption. Now, why is this happening? Increasing of the practices of the urban farming, we can think of this urbanization as a one driver, but definitely there's a growing number of the concern about the food safety, how that the food is produced is that the many of the concerns of the growing number of consumers, but also I think from many of us in Asian development, looking at from the angle of the how this urban farming technology can contribute to this the reducing the resources in producing more, and also to reducing the environmental footprint, and also how the resilience of the food system in the making. The pandemic experience is still ongoing in some parts of the world. It teaches us about this, how fragile this food system is, and then having the closer, having the production bases close to your home, it adds to another layer of the resilience for the many of the urban consumers. So that's what is driving this incidences. And what we really want to understand now is that how that's the promotion of the urban agricultural control farming is working as the public sector investments, as well as the agribusiness, how profitable that is and how it's evolving. We want to learn from the examples of the investors. And then we would like to think and reflect that as how that's a technology or this approach, this business approach is useful for shaping that new resilient and very inclusive food system in Asia Pacific. That's the sort of the motivation of this session today. For this kind of discussion, we have an excellent set of the research speakers. First of all, we're very, very fortunate to have the Agriculture Secretary from the Philippines, Secretary William Dar. I think everybody knows Secretary Dar, so he needs no introduction, but let me highlight a little bit of this achievement that he has done. Secretary Dar is a founding director of the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Agricultural Research. And he was also serving as a secretary of the Department of Agriculture during 1998 to 1999, during which time the Philippine agriculture showed a tremendous growth spurt of up to 9.6%. And also the current position as agriculture secretary, he started in 2019. He's been promoting the vision of the food secure and a resilient Philippines. And also there is a famous agenda of the One DA reform agenda. So let's hear a lot from the Secretary Dar about what he does, what he's promoting in the urban agriculture sphere, and how he envisioned how he would like to see the future of agriculture in the urban areas in Philippines. Secretary Dar.
Thank you very much, Michiko, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by thanking Mr. Kelly Bird and the other executives and staff of the Asian Development Bank for inviting me to participate in this gathering. As a lifelong advocate of smart, sustainable agriculture, I'm pleased that more people today are showing an interest in urban farming. This afternoon, I'd like to speak to you about the Philippine government's experience with this now widespread practice, which will steer us towards our long-term goal of food security, towards food sovereignty. In so doing, I hope to share some of the most important lessons we have learned from our successful urban farming program over the past 2.5 years. As was the case of many governments in the developing world, the Philippine government's urban farming initiative gained greater support both from civic organizations and local governments during the height of the pandemic. Some 51 million Filipinos live in urban communities throughout the islands. Millions of them are poor and unable to afford sufficient food. Urban and peri-urban agriculture represents vast livelihood opportunities for populations with no immediate access to agricultural lands. As the Philippine population grows, so does the pressure to produce enough affordable food for the poor. This happens as rapid urbanization claims more and more farmlands across the Philippine Islands, and the consequences of climate change hamper both food production and the logistics of food distribution. Geopolitics will drastically alter the food landscape as well. We are seeing it unfold right now as Russia's invasion of Ukraine triggers commodity shocks, global inflation, and deficiencies in farm input supply. Plant and animal diseases could wreak considerable damage. We cite here the ravages of the African swine fever in the Philippines, which undermine the entirety of our achievements in the agri-fishery sector in official statistics. Because of ASF, the entire sector posted some contraction, whereas it could have exhibited undeniable growth absent the hog disease. The Philippine Department of Agriculture's National Urban Agriculture and Peri-Urban Agriculture Program, or NUPAP, is thus designed to achieve 4 goals. First, the program forms part of a larger effort to address food shortages in the country, particularly in poor urban communities. Second, we want to ensure an adequate supply of readily available and nutritious food within the community. Third, while urbanization is generally regarded as one of the biggest threats to biodiversity, environment-friendly, sustainable agriculture in towns and cities can boost the abundance and diversity of wildlife. And fourth, we want to stabilize food prices and limit food inflation, even as we help the urban poor earn some extra income from selling the food they produce. We thus embrace this as a priority policy and program in the Department of Agriculture. We want to further scale it out and scale up as we go into the second phase of the President's Plan Program, Part 2. We believe that urban agriculture program will outsize contributions to overall farm output. More importantly, it will change mindsets on the ground about food production. It envisions food security and food sovereignty as a national effort, with every Filipino household capacitated to feed itself. In essence, urban and peri-urban agriculture captures the principle of development, that of people-centered movements. Hence, local government units and all sectoral classes could be partners. Now, new PAP has 5 components: the distribution of farm inputs and establishment of community farms, vertical farms, and which would include even precision greenhouses, and rooftop gardens in cities and suburbs. So overall, the program strategy is built along the 4 pillars of the 1-day reform agenda: consolidation, industrialization, modernization, and professionalization. The last 3 pillars are well known, hence we stress consolidation here as a basic strategy, a basic pillar that will instill economies of scale in the practice and transform it into a viable livelihood. New PAP is an initiative built on multi-sectoral collaboration. We have formed partnerships with local government units, institutional buyers, homeowners, and international organizations like FAO to ensure that vulnerable Filipino urban communities are not only able to grow their own food, but also able to generate jobs and supplemental incomes from urban farming. I am pleased to report that the program champions sustainable, resilient food production. Our indoor vertical farms use no pesticides and are protected against extreme weather conditions brought on by climate change. Our rooftop gardens absorb rainfall and help prevent runoff during rainy weather. They likewise reduce energy consumption by cooling homes during hot weather, among others. These advantages have the potential to transform an otherwise bleak and gray urban horizon. The program is likewise entirely in keeping with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. New PAP has helped to reduce hunger, provides employment, improves the environment of our cities, and is entirely climate friendly. It is estimated that 800 million people around the world are food insecure. This number could balloon in the next few years if we fail to act on global food security challenges right now. Comprising a major portion of this food insecure population are poverty-stricken urban dwellers whose situations worsened during the pandemic out of unemployment. The overall results of the program have been gratifying. New PAP urban farms produce a total harvest of 41,000 kilograms of fresh vegetables each month. The farms have improved the access of the urban poor to safe, affordable, and nutritious food. They have improved crop diversification, reduced hunger, and even helped to improve economic growth by encouraging enterprise during the pandemic. To address food safety, we train participating homeowners and local executives about best practices. We likewise help them create food safety plans, and conduct microbial analysis, test for waters and fresh produce. They have allowed the underprivileged to increase their incomes through the sale of the high-value crops they harvest. They have also allowed local governments to attain their policy goals and also reduce the consequences of disruptions in the food value chain during the outbreak. Now, the program has reduced pressures on food distribution chains, allowed partnerships with food delivery applications, and reduced the cost of transporting food and help producers establish direct links with consumers and buyers. We have seen how reliant our globalized trade models are to international supply chains. In times of crisis, we can mitigate the impacts of food supply chain disruptions with urban agriculture as a buffer mechanism. Let me add that the one additional area that have been mentioned in this deep dive 2 is all about precision agriculture. We promote in a big way precision agriculture, not only in urban areas, but now starting in the areas where high value agriculture is being advocated in a big way. So precision agriculture will be one of the very tools that we want to nurture, we want to improve, and much more when we are going to enhance our products for the export market. Now, after decades in which agriculture and nutrition did not always get the attention they deserve, the Philippine government has finally put the fight against hunger where it should be, where it's at the forefront of the national development agenda. DUPAP is proof of that. Urban agriculture increases access to healthy, safe, affordable, fresh produce, and provides urban communities with opportunities to learn about nutrition and growing food. It encourages urban communities to know where food comes from, how it's grown, and to connect the people who produce it. It makes sense to ensure that those who consume food know how to grow it. Only then can Filipinos take to heart what food sovereignty or freedom to determine and control the supply of food available to themselves really means. Thank you, and may we all be agents of ensuring food security towards food sovereignty. Mabuhay.
Thank you so much, Secretary Dar, for the insightful, that's very concise the presentation. You touch upon very interesting and important points, and in the precision agriculture is yes, definitely. And that's what is really, personally, I'm impressed is the, not just for the food, urban agriculture is the promoted for the home consumption, but it's also the generation of jobs and it's more dynamic things happening concerning all this, that the food value chain access. So that's very impressive, very, Philippine government definitely is the forefront of this urban agriculture promotion. And we would like to ask a little bit more questions to that. If you can stay, Secretary Dar, please do. And then we would like to invite more panel discussion, as we like to do the discussion forward by inviting 3 more panelists. So please stay. Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you. Let me invite then for this the first panel resource speaker, Dr. Sairam Reddy from the Urban Kisan. Dr. Sairam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sairam is, I think, is very has a great profiles in all the social media, and I kind of know that I feel that I know you already. You have a very interesting operation at Urbanization in India. Can you, in the form of the introduction, can you tell us about just a little bit about what the Urbanization do and why you're doing it? Please, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful to you for inviting me for this forum. Yes, see, Urban Kisan is formed with a great cause because we noticed that most of the food what we eat in urban areas is in fact either heavily contaminated with the heavy metals. As this food is being grown in urban and peri-urban regions where it is highly polluted with either industrial effluents or run out from the the urban sewerages. This is the water and soil being used. So this contaminated soils and water is being used to grow this food, and this food is carrying very toxic heavy metals like arsenic, lead, and many other toxins. So as most of the greens, especially, come from the the farms which are grown in the peri-urban areas. As it is highly perishable, you can't transport from long distances. Though a lot of land is available in countries like India, but the cities are densely packed, and the needs are served primarily from the peri-urban regions. So that's what actually we are eating. So what is the other alternate ways and means to really address this challenge? So when we were exploring this, the issue, we see, of course, rooftop gardening and soil-based backyards, and these are the solutions. But it comes with its own packages, like it makes you stick to your garden. If you have to go on vacation or if you have to go on a function, that's a challenge for us to, someone has to stay back and do something and to handle that. So that's where we see this hydroponics or soilless cultivation or precision home gardening as a suitable solution. So then that's where we stepped into this field and then started developing a few solutions. Primarily started our activities with the balcony kits and then roof garden kits. So then we started expanding our operations, building farms in the roof gardens and building farms in the peri-urban areas. So we started our activities with the leafy greens and basically in balconies, and now we are growing almost all the vegetables for our tropical country needs in the urban and peri-urban areas.
Thank you so much. If I may, just a little bit more, just that, what is the number, roughly number of this that your clientele? How many people are you serving right now? I'm sorry, I'm not really familiar with this, your scale of operation.
Yeah, so currently we are operational in one big city in southern part of India called Hyderabad. So
okay.
we have more than 400,000 customers where we are serving. So we have both online retailing, and also we actually opened our retail stores, branded retail stores, where our produce is carefully channeled through these retail stores, which are spread across the city.
Interesting. And then you're planning to expand beyond the Hyderabad, I presume?
Yes. Shortly, we'll be expanding our activities in 3 more cities in southern India. Okay. And by next year, want to expand in other parts of India also.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Please stay on that. Let me introduce another panel, the second panel, my colleague, Maria Tran. Maria is the engineer for the urban water and also the sanitation facilities development. Oddly enough, Maria has been working together with us to introduce agriculture in urban state and under her sort of as an extension of their utility development investment. Marie, tell us a little bit about what you're working on and why you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Chico. So I am an engineer by background in water and sanitation, and ADB is got an upcoming project in the water and sanitation and solid waste sectors in Nauru. And while we were working on this, you know, it really came to light the need for, I guess, supporting Nauru in a more holistic and a more island, whole of island kind of way of thinking. And part of that got brought into urban agriculture and what we can do in this space. And I would say that agriculture is not something that is currently happening at any great scale in Nauru. So it's a very exciting time to be looking at urban agriculture and how we can kind of revive local food production and build the industry.
Thank you, Maria. You wanted to use your presentation file or your...
Oh, yes, I can use my presentation file. Sorry, I thought we were just doing introduction. I can do that. Hold on one second. I will share my screen. Sorry. Okay, you should be able to see my presentation in presentation mode.
Yes, the one with the notes. Maybe you want to
with the notes?
Yes.
With notes still?
Nope. You can just do with the notes. But anyway, we can see it. And please go ahead.
Oops. No problems.
It disappeared.
Okay. Still disappeared. All right. I will just share.
There we go.
Here.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. We won't get the cool animation, but that's fine. So thank you, Michiko, for my introduction. A little bit more about me. I'm the Senior Project Officer based in the Pacific Department in Sydney, Australia. And so before I begin my presentation, I just wanted to do a brief acknowledgement of country, which is customary in Australia before presentation, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I am dialing in from. And that is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay respects to First Nations people, their elders past, present, and emerging. So I guess today I wanted to engage with you a little bit about how ADB is looking to urban agriculture as one part of a more holistic approach to addressing key development issues in Nauru. To set the scene, there's the Pacific, and that's a region that faces many unique and varied challenges, including small populations, small land areas, dispersion, isolation, as well as heightened exposure to disasters and the effects of climate change. So Nauru, here you can see we are focusing on today, is one of the world's smallest countries, and it is the smallest in the South Pacific Ocean. It's only 21 kilometers squared, and it has a population of just under 13,000 people. Even amongst Pacific countries, Nauru has its own unique challenges and characteristics. You can see here from the map that the island is made up of a low-lying kind of coastal plain that's depicted in the yellowish color, and that surrounds an elevated plateau in orange. Going around the whole island in light blue is a shallow reef that sits exposed during the low tide. So the majority of the population lives in that coastal plain in the yellow shaded area, meaning that 100% of the population is actually urban. That's not as common in, for example, in some other Pacific countries. There's an urban and a rural element where there could be one main island where the majority of the population might sit, or the capital might sit, and then outer lying islands that are kind of classified as more rural. But here in Nauru, the whole country is considered an urban population. And unfortunately, due to phosphate mining, the Central Plateau, which is the part highlighted in orange, is completely barren from the phosphate mining. And you can see that in the top right picture depicted in the slide. So 80% of Nauru is in this state. It's uninhabitable and non-arable. So it cannot be inhabited or farmed without extensive and expensive rehabilitation works. And this is just, I guess, a fact of how the geography of the island was made, and how the mining has created these large, really dense limestone pinnacles that make it really difficult to do anything with this area. So this, combined with a culture that has historically focused more on fishing, has combined to make agriculture a bit difficult in Nauru. The limited scope of agriculture in Nauru has posed a number of issues for the nation. So this includes the population being heavily dependent on imported food sources. Over 90% of food is imported into the country. So I mentioned before the light blue area in the map, which is a shallow reef. Due to this reef, there is currently not sufficient port infrastructure for cargo ships to dock on the island. So what normally happens is that a ship making a delivery will sail in deeper waters outside that reef area until a smaller ship can come and unload one container at a time. So in poor weather conditions, it can take up to 1 month to unload a ship. Consequently, fresh food is not necessarily available and can't be supplied. And the food that is shipped is energy dense and poor in nutrients. Life expectancy in Nauru is below regional standards, and this contributes a lot to that. In Nauru, the life expectancy for women is 64.8 years, and for men, it's 57.8 years. And for comparison, in other Pacific countries, it's expected that women live for more than 65 years, and for men over 60 years. So the general poor diet has resulted in over 94% of the population being obese or overweight, and it has one of the highest incidences of non-communicable diseases in the region. The economic costs of population health issues is really significant, with diabetes alone costing approximately 20% of the government expenditure. So obviously, growing food on Nauru can go some way into addressing some of these key development issues. However, building an agriculture industry where there currently isn't really one is not as easy as it seems. And particularly on Nauru, as with most Pacific countries, customary land practices makes it really hard for governments or people to buy or lease land. So considering that 80% of the land needs to be rehabilitated, and the majority of people live on that coastal plain, which is currently suffering from overcrowding, space is a big issue. And then with climate change, water scarcity will become a bigger issue in Nauru. Nauru already experiences drought, and it relies on rainwater for its water supply, but people can supplement their water supply with desalinated water that can be delivered by trucks to household tanks. However, this can be kind of an expensive exercise. So over the last couple of years, we've seen that an increase of importance needs to be placed on agriculture in Nauru and local food production, especially the disruption of the logistical supply chains due to COVID-19 has really exposed the country's vulnerabilities to food insecurity. And then naturally, this places more importance on local food production. This aligns strongly with the government's priorities of productive land and healthy and productive people, which is clearly stated in their Nauru Sustainable Development Strategy and Nauru's nationally determined contribution. So what ADB is doing is, as I mentioned before, looking holistically at different sectors across the island and working across the whole island to work with government to support these key development goals in country, and then to support resilience and adapt to climate change. We have multiple projects going in the pipeline for Nauru, including a port project, which will help ensure that cargo ships are able to dock and will relieve some of these food insecurity issues. And then a solar power project that will enable reliable power supply. And then, as I mentioned, the upcoming focus on water supply, sanitation, and solid waste. And it's imagined that we can include an urban agriculture component under this investment. At the moment, we are in the early stages of developing a feasibility study, which we hope to pilot then scale. An important part of this work is climate change adaptation. So looking at really efficient ways to use water, the water that we're able to harvest, possibly drip irrigation. We're looking at appropriate technology for the context of Nauru, looking at aquaponics or hydroponics or rooftop gardens to achieve our goals. And we're doing this in partnership with the Nauru Government Department of Climate Change and National Resilience. So we want to pair this with behavior change campaigns to help change the culture around food choices in Nauru as well. So we're hoping that the revival of local food production and enhancing the population health will increase the resilience for Nauru and increase quality of life for Nauruans. And we believe this holistic approach across the whole island and many sectors can make it quite successful.
Thank you, Maria, for a very enthusiastic presentation. I can see that Maria is one of the group of this very innovative young ADB's project teams who would like to go beyond the call of this, the municipality facilities or urban or rural, just to get things done for towards the goal of the climate resilience and also the nutrition smart food system development. Nauru is not an easy place to work, but it's been working hit and miss, but we've been doing the trial and errors. And right now we're working with this Indian agronomist who has revised the horticulture industry in Nicobar. So we just trying our best. Everybody's pitching in for this challenging task, and it's a really exciting work. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just have a bit of announcement. We were planning to invite the Gloria Krause as a panelist from she's a CEO of this whole film, but for some communication mistake, I don't know, but she's not in. So we just skip her presentation and we'll go right into the panel discussion. So let me call again that Secretary Dar. There's a lot of questions coming in the Q&A, but so let me ask you one fundamental question. All those important works that you've been doing for the past decade for the urban agriculture and peri-urban agriculture, how is it playing out in terms of scale? Do you see that the future of this, that the urban agriculture and the rooftop and elsewhere, is it going to be the major source of the nutritious and healthy food for the urban consumers, which is growing by days and years? And can you please comment on this?
Yes, good afternoon. I am representing Secretary Dar. I am Glenn Panganiban. I'm the director of the National Peri-Urban Agriculture Program of the department. So
thank you for joining. Thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Okay, about your question about your how do we see it if we can upscale this? Of course, urban agriculture in the Philippines was how can we call that, reignited in 2019 when it was assigned to our office by the good secretary even before COVID. But then after COVID, when it happened, we were really flooded with the interest of the people. They started requesting for seeds, for planting materials, for technical support. So the interest is there. So definitely that's a check already. But regarding the scale, of course, as the other panelists may have mentioned earlier, the challenge for the scaling up of urban agriculture is the space requirement in the cities. But we did not stop there because we tapped government agencies who have big areas. We also tap the private sector for their rooftops. A big conglomerate of malls here have already partnered with us to offer us their rooftops. So that's also, and even the civil society organizations started supporting us. So at first, that the vision that just having this as food always in the home, just for the backyard and for the individual households, it has become an opportunity, I think, because even homeowners associations have organized themselves and grown crops that they can now sell to the market. So in terms of upscaling, it's positive. We are positive about this. And what's more inspiring is the support that we're getting, not only from the Department of Agriculture, but even the other agencies. So we started collaborating with Agrarian Reform for their projects, and other government agencies, even the Department of Justice, one penal colony, which has a big area here in Manila. We have already started planting there. So I think in terms of upscaling the initiative, it's only a matter of the budget, I think. But since other sectors are already involved in this, I think we can make this. And I think the secretary is really pushing for additional budget for agriculture, not only just for the rural, but of course with the urban settings. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the very encouraging sort of information, the initiative that you're working on. One thing that I recently noticed that you've been closing a lot of signing an MOU with various private sector players as well. And then I'm glad to hear that you're really expanding your friends among different ministries and so that you can expand and scale. Maybe if there's a certain sort of areas, this is sort of for agriculture, the segment of the ADB operation. This is a relatively new initiative, but we're willing to just dialogue with you and your colleagues, and maybe you explore the area we can do more with you. I know my colleagues in working on Mindanao is already working with your FAITH project, and this FAITH project is the urban sort of malnourished families food consumption sort of program. And by that's just boosting the production capacity at the backyard. This is something that is relatively new to us, but I think there's a lot that we can learn from you. So we are looking forward to the opportunities.
Sure. I think we wrote ADB, a formal letter, I think during the start of this. So we hope to really collaborate with you. And just an additional point, we at the government realized that we cannot do this alone. So that's why we tapped all sectors that we can get help with. And not only here in the local, but even in the international field. So yeah, we hope to further collaborate with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me ask it then the question. Let me call the Dr. Siren from the Urban Kisan. The related question that we've been discussing is about the cost of the production in urban agriculture. You were mentioning about windowsills, it's a home garden that you can start in the apartment and urban setting. How expensive is that? And how is this the feedback of the consumers? Is it spreading? A lot of people starting doing that? Or is it very expensive exercise? Or can you tell us about the prospect of the scaling again and the cost from the cost sort of concerns?
Yeah, there's the kits which can be used in the balconies or rooftops are not expensive. they're comfortable with the kits. That is a scalable solution, and we are scaling. We have already sold a decent number of these kits. But still, there's a lot of awareness issue. I mean, the more than the expenditure on this home garden using the soilless farming. The awareness issue is much bigger. Like there's still a concerns about the soilless farming as this not being considered as a natural farming or a healthy farming. This is something needs to be addressed by the academic institutions and media and so. So if that can happen, and this is very easily scalable. I mean, I call very affectionately as a micro farming, and if each one can adapt so well, Dr. William Dhar mentioned, like the what you eat. I mean, you should also know how to plant. So this is a very important promotional thing. Probably, I mean, need to push to have this micro gardenings or micro farming. It doesn't matter, you may not be having huge farming area. So just a small space which you can use to grow your minimal food for your day-to-day requirements. At least that can be achieved with no major expenditure involving.
That's very encouraging. In fact, I have a tiny micro garden in my home as well. But okay, so the advocacy coming from maybe the public sector collaboration to just to teach the public about the how to farm and also importance of the doing that, and that might work. But are you working on any of this that the drive together with perhaps the state government or local public institution?
Yeah, we are working with academic institutions to take this as awareness activities. And this is now being accepted in agriculture colleges. So now this is now in the first run, this is being taught with the students, and a lot of trainings are being taken up. So this is the first level of awareness as to go in, and this can take long way in the extension and the public awareness activity. So at least I'm happy that it has started at that level, but long way to go still I see.
Thank you very much for that. Let me call my colleague Maria again for, I think from your sharing your experience and working in Nauru, and you mentioned about the multiple very different players that you're working with already. This is your project originally is supposed to be simple facility, the building, the water supply system, and also toilets. But now you're venturing into climate resilience, nutrition matters, and then you actually just do the production system of the food production system. How do you deal with this multi sort of a different sort of organization, different ministries, people? Do you find any difficulties doing that? Or maybe you see that as a bright future, just dealing with the multi-sectoral sort of participation model?
That's a good question. I think the one good thing in Nauru is that the department that is looking after the water supply and has been a big champion so far of this project also has a division that looks into agriculture. So we already have a strong relationship with our government counterparts there, and know that they are wanting to, are committed to the longer term vision of these projects. And I guess water supply, sanitation, and solid waste, I guess in part infrastructure projects, but they also, rely a lot on the systems and enabling environment as well. And I think that carries well into, the systems around agriculture and urban agriculture. And I think that there's some synergies to be had there.
Thank you. Now I just noticed that there's quite a few questions that were into the Q&A. Then let me just address that with some of the panelists, please. The first the question comes from Neil to the Secretary William Dhar. How will the Philippines increase food production in urban areas with the severe lack of imported fertilizers, which are the primary nutrients used in hydroponics as well as in soil?
Yes, okay, to address that question, thank you, Neil. I also typed in my reply actually. But yes, there is a seeming lack of primary inputs for fertilizers nowadays. So here in the urban agriculture program, of course, we also do solid waste management. And I think that helps or complements that because some of our practitioners or our urban farmers already do composting, so that could at least lessen the dependence on those fertilizers. And of course, that's for the soil, but for the local nutrient solutions, we are challenging the academe. Yesterday, we were just in UP Los Baños, and the secretary really challenged the academe to produce. Actually, we produce the SNAP solutions there, hydroponic solutions in UP Los Baños. But I think there are many other academic institutions or private sector that can help us with that, producing their own fertilizers, inorganic or organic, because we are pushing for that, the balanced fertilization also even for urban agriculture.
Thank you for the simple and straightforward answer for this. Thank you. Next question for Dr. Sairam. One challenge with the urban farming in developing country context maybe, the question has always been the cost of operation. We touch upon this one, as well as the range of products. How have you been able to address these issues? Range of products, what are the major products that you're promoting to use producing at the windowsill on the urban setting, right? Is that just leafy vegetables, or what are the variety that you're promoting?
Yeah, so there, even in the cost of production, there are two things involved. One is the cost of setup. The other one is cost of operations. Primary expenditure towards the cost of operations is the power, electricity. So this is where probably, we request governments to step in and then provide some subsidy for this electricity. Consider this urban farming is also as a farming, so in countries like India, we have subsidized power for farmers. But a similar kind of power subsidy, if it is provided for urban farms, that would be a great support to promote this farming and reduce the cost of production. So when it comes to the range of products, this is another big challenge, and I would like to make a mention here. So currently we are actually producing the spectrum of products, not just leafy greens. We are producing the tomatoes, we are producing the cucumbers, peppers, hot peppers, gourds, and cabbages, broccoli, and many of these things we are producing. But there is a challenge. Having said that, we are doing it. Most of these varieties were not actually bred for hydroponics. They were bred for soil cultivation. They're bred for open field cultivation. And then if we select those crops which are high yielding for open fields, and then because that's the commercial seed available in the market, and then put them in hydroponic cultivation, there is a challenge. So these are architecture of plant changes and the plant behavior changes. And sometimes you may see the yield advantage, but most of the times we don't. So this is another space where we need to promote breeding for hydroponics, breeding for vertical farming. This is a core area. Unless some research goes in, the breeds come out of such research to facilitate farming in this kind of environment. I don't think this can really work out as we are actually dreaming for. And this is still like a very nascent, because the produce we are still selling at a higher price compared to the produce which is soil grown. It's of course the quality of the produce is good, but primarily it is because cost of production is high, and that can be compensated provided the yields are also substantially increased. So this is the emphasis I would like to give it to you, as you are the one driving this kind of activities, probably influencing the governments and then academic institutions.
Thank you. The energy efficiency is always the first issue that you always have to consider. How do you think about this? You mentioned about this variety development, which is valid points, but what about energy efficiency in hydroponics? Is that the space that you can see opportunity to further explore this energy efficiency? Lighting, for that's a very advanced one. It's very efficient in terms of energy efficient already. Maybe it's about the motors and all that. How about use of renewables, or how about use of the solar? What do you think?
Yes, that's what we are exploring. Currently, we deployed this renewable energies. Solar is the number one option which comes, but still the solar infrastructure is not cheaper. So it's still expensive, and of course we can recover, but the hydroponic setup itself is expensive. On top of it, again, we need to spend on another, infrastructure expenditure. This is where the challenge comes. That's definitely, when we consider huge farming with lots of money to invest, definitely the solution what you gave is correct. But what if we are talking about smaller farms in urban areas? We are not going to build huge, massive corporate farms. That's not what we are actually promoting for. So that's where this challenge comes. We need to look for some alternate ways, power subsidies and things like that.
Well, that's a valid point. Sorry, there's one more question to you. On the nutritional impact of your customers, what is your assessment of how much more relative price the consumers are willing to pay for the nutritious food? Please share some interesting experiences. I think it's that you were talking about this cost is higher than just buying the soil-based sort of the food. Then now it's maybe driver of this people who wants to buy your product and produce their own. It's about the food safety, the concern, like you're mentioning, but also nutrition impacts, nutrition intake. Are there many people, do you see that they're willing to pay for that extra money for nutrition?
It's a very good question. Yes and no. Yes, because of course there is a small group of people in the society always have a lot of money to spend extra for whatever they want. So they're always willing to spend extra money to buy for that nutrition. What about those who cannot afford to spare that extra money? So this is where my point comes into the picture. This is a very efficient technology at having these barriers. So this is where the focus has to go in and make this produce as competitive as the regular farm grown or open field grown produce. Then only the real utility of this technology can be reaped. So if we just bank on those who can afford or who are willing to pay even double the price, probably this is still going to stay as a niche market and serving only those who can afford.
Right, and also I guess the certain point in time, like a lockdown situation, a lot of people willing. I mean, you were mentioning in your presentation initially mentioned that there's after the COVID, they're willing to pay whatever it is to make the food available at the home doorway, right?
So surge we have seen during lockdown and after lockdown, the consciousness of the food, what they eat is growing among people. Earlier, they were not so conscious about what they were eating. So now they're willing to pay for that extra money for that, the quality. And so primarily that they want to know that from where this food is coming, how this is being, shipped, how hygienically this is being handled. This is a dream for everyone, but the cost should not come in between serving this kind of a food, but affordability.
Thank you, Dr. Sairam. Let me call again my colleague, Maria. Maria, there's a question for you. Knowing that the potential of scaling and innovation is limited by population number, which technologies in urban farming seem to be most appropriate? What kind of urban farming are you thinking about for now?
At the moment, we've been asked by the government to look into hydroponics or aquaponics, which is something that they have had other reports done, I think by FAO, that they investigate. So that's something that we are undertaking a feasibility study for. And also because land is such an issue in Nauru, we're potentially looking at rooftop gardens. We're looking at potentially working with the government for them to set this up. There's been a lot of pilots in the past for backyard gardening that haven't been that successful. I think because without the support from the development partner, the backyard farming kind of fell off people's to-do lists. And so the government has really recognized that this is something that's quite important and are now willing to put in the resources and capacity necessary to take this forward.
Okay, thank you. Then one more question. How can hydroponics supplement the calorie requirements of the people of Nauru? Would you consider rebuilding soil even with geological damage by mining and for the long-term survival of Nauru? What do you say to this?
Yes, that is something that we can consider. It's slightly more complicated than that. I think I did type an answer to Neil, but it didn't cover everything. And that's basically, this goes hand in hand with rehabilitating the island, which is something that the government would like to do. Eventually, due to sea level rise, that coastal plain that most people are living on might be inundated through storm surges. And so there is a wider, push longer term strategy to move the population up onto that plateau. But before that can happen, rehabilitation needs to happen. And that at the moment is costing about $1 million to rehabilitate 1 hectare, which is, I know I showed a photo in my presentation, but I don't know if it was very clear, but the land is actually big outcrops of limestone that had phosphate in between. And so before anything can even happen, heavy machinery needs to come and flatten those limestone outcrops before we can do anything with that. And at the moment, it's a bit difficult to get landowners to agree to that because some people see the potential for secondary phosphate mining in the future and they don't want to kind of lose that opportunity. So there's a bit of, yes, we would consider that if we are able to get land and how much of it and where. And also, we want to make a model that's sustainable. So moving into the future, this can be hopefully replicated across the island, and that's quite dependent on land availability.
So in the meantime, we're just going to try to produce something in the air, right?
Yeah, and the government is also getting a lot of support from bilateral support from New Zealand to plan that kind of higher ground initiative. So potentially, ADB is working closely with MFAT, the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to support that project as well. So, you know, that's something that we can talk about in the future, I guess, planning of the higher ground, there to be space for agriculture. But at the moment, that's a little bit far into the future.
Thank you, Maria. Let me go back to the, okay, so there's a question for the Department of Agriculture, Philippines. There are two, maybe we go to the big question now. What innovation of the food agriculture in decades 2021 to 2030 and after 2030 and 2050? So that the long-term vision, what sort of the long-term vision you have for this innovation in the food system?
You're referring to urban agriculture, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that assumption here is that urban agriculture is the innovation for the food, the future food system.
Because our department has been really pushing for innovation, I think, from the start of Secretary Dar's tenure as the minister in 2019. He's been pushing for innovation and really scaling up agriculture. And where else should we start but really supporting with the modernization infrastructure. So for urban agriculture, we have been looking at vertical farming now, not just the backyard farming. We've been looking at vertical farming, modernized urban agriculture modules, even the topic earlier, the concern earlier, growing microgreens. You're also looking at that. So really supporting the technologies and the infrastructure, because I think that's the sustainable part of this. I mean, if we invest on something and treat it as an enterprise, also that's one of the investments that we are looking at, is really making urban agriculture as an agricultural enterprise. It's not just gardening, but having it as a livelihood. But because that's where, as I've mentioned earlier, many participants have joined, and many participants also have dropped out. And I think one of the incentives that we have to put here is how do they earn livelihoods? So our vision here in the department, aside from supporting infrastructure and adding funds, technical assistance, also is grouping together or organizing even the urban farmers, so that they can benefit more from the shared facilities of those infrastructures that we are putting in, and realize economies of scale, even if they are only a small patch of land here in the metro. If we can have a network of those lands together and organized and working together, I think that's where the sustainability will come in. So that's I think the investment and the sustainability, the vision that we see for urban agriculture in the future. Of course, climate resilience. I have to add.
I was waiting for that. No, so one little more questions to you. There's the person who's asking about if we're interested in starting hydroponics or projects similar to Plan, how or where can we access support?
Yeah, I answered this question. I gave the email.
Okay, you did. Okay.
I can mention it. da.urbanagriculture@gmail.com. We also, that's our specific office email, but in the DA we have a website and we have a Facebook page that you can it's very responsive, and you can also visit us in the office. So we can connect you with the experts, the internal experts here in the department, and also with our partners, our collaborators, because again, government cannot do it alone. So we can help you with other contacts.
Thank you so much for that. We have 5 more minutes to answer questions. There are a lot more. Maybe let's just pick some of those remaining questions. Questions from Tush now. This is from the Dr. Sairam. What marketing strategy you are using to penetrate the market? Who are the shareholders of your marketing activities, starting from increasing customer awareness, the actual sale of the technology, if you're happy to share? Marketing strategy.
Yeah, I'll be very happy to share. So can I share a couple of my slides? Is that okay?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
See, this is our indoor farm. This indoor farm is always attached with our retail store. So this is how our retail store looks like. Okay. So why I'm showing this, this itself is our marketing strategy. So this is the experience we give to our customers. It's where the customers walk in and harvest what they want and then get the freshest possible form of that, the vegetables, and then take home. This is our primary marketing strategy. So instead of we talk a lot about it, we wanted to make the customer's experience what it is. So that's one of the reasons why we started these retail stores. These stores are actually the experience locations, and we also have this online the supplies, online orders, and we have the supply partners where what you call the logistic partners. So where this can be door delivered. So this is the strategy, and other marketing strategies is all with in the social media, the Insta and other the digital marketing only we do, primarily the digital marketing. But these are the front face of it. And we also built another, the interesting vertical is the value addition to the food. We came out with this, the salads and the bowls, their replacement for a snack and also replacement for their meal. So, and these are redesigned. They are not, just like what we see otherwise in the multi-cuisine restaurants. These are redesigned. These are designed to suit the palates of the locals. So, and this is being appreciated and accepted so well. And this became, their meal replacement for most of the working people for the lunch and things like that. So this is what is a very innovatively we try to do to reach out to our customers, rather than just trying to build some hoardings and things like that. So this has been very successful so far, and I'm very happy to say that we could, build a very strong hold of 400,000 the customer base in one single city.
That's excellent. Your hydroponics at the vertical farming system looks like the one that we always see in the urban cities and the restaurants at the back. Just take your home salad leaves and they'll wash it and make a salad for you, kind of things. Looks really neat. Thank you so much for that. So one last question. I don't know who wants to answer this one. I think it's very important. So hydroponics, what about if you produce the food with the hydroponics, what happened to the micronutrient content? And also, what about the taste? Anybody wants to answer this?
Yeah, I can take that
Please
question.
Do.
The taste actually, especially herbs, the taste is doubly enhanced. The reason why it is like this, the herbs and aromatic herbs, the volatile compounds are that which makes it more aromatic. And since these crops are grown in controlled environment, and these aromatic volatile compounds are retained so well, preserved in the leaf. And it's the case with most of the vegetables where you'll be giving highly balanced nutrient input. Taste is always enhanced. And when it comes to the nutritional supplement, in meaning like the very basic purpose why we take this food, there are a lot of research people have conducted. Top institutions like Stanford and all have done a lot of research, and published demonstrated there will be no change in its nutritional values of this hydroponic produce compared to the farm grown or soil grown produce. So there is a possibility of slight reduction in antioxidants in some of the vegetables, because antioxidants are produced when there is the slight additional stress to the plant, and as the plant is growing luxuriously all the time. But this is a very insignificant reduction. This is what we are supposed to make a note of it. So the conclusion is there is no reduction in our nutritional value, and but enhanced taste and aroma is always in with the produce grown in hydroponics.
Thank you very much for that. I think I have to second about this aroma and also the freshness and taste, which is very important for some of the restaurants' clientele. It's completely different if you just pick the herbs and all the ingredients from off the table, just a few meters away from the table, and put them in the kitchen and serve it to the table. Really, really different. I'm coming from the land where most of the things that we're willing to eat raw. And so we do care about the aroma and then textures and freshness. And that's something that is really edgy about the urban agriculture, particularly when you try to do that sort of home gardening, sort of a modern version of home gardening, and also the doing the serving that at the restaurants. Anyways, with that, I really am satisfied with all this content of our discussions. We cover a lot of grounds on this, and I thank you very much for all the panelists for the excellent presentation and also knowledge sharing. One of the things that I'm sort of really encouraged as one of the group of people that work in ADB to pushing urban agriculture and thinking about how that can serve for the food security, sustainability of the future, and also inclusiveness of the food system. And I'm really encouraged that the Philippines for the spearheading about this government efforts, and maybe provides a very good lessons learned for the other our member countries to follow. Perhaps we would like to continue dialogue with you. And then also we would like to expand the sort of the group of people. Maybe next time around, we can just bring a lot more just the diverse group of people and then discuss. So maybe within a day or two of the workshop, face to face, maybe that's the right way to go. And maybe at the urban farming system, that'll be a great idea, don't you think? Anyway, with that, let me conclude this session and thanking all of you for participation, and also and from the organizer, there will be a screen appearing for the review of this session. The poll will come out, so please do participate. Send us all this the feedback of the session. Thank you so much for your participation.